The former Nickelodeon star Jennette McCurdy is glad her mum passed away. Jennette spent most of her life idolizing Deborah, but in reality, Debbie was a narcissist who dictated her daughter's every move. She made little Jennette a breadwinner through child acting, and the girl wasn't ready for such pressure.
On the outside, I was doing a lot of the performing, the tap dancing of like the smile and the showing up and landing on my mark. But inside I was hurting. It was painful. I was angry. I felt unsupported.
Deborah was also the reason Jennette battled severe eating disorders for most of her life. Yet few people ever suspected the former child actress had a traumatic past. Until 30-year-old McCurdy wrote a memoir with a brutal title, "I'm Glad My Mum Died." So was Deborah really such a monster? And how did Jennette heal from all the harm her mother caused?
I wouldn't have written the book if my mom were alive. I would still have my identity dictated by her.
Jennette never wanted to go into acting, but her mother had other plans for her.
Her approach was very unhealthy and informed by her own lack of self-work, and she lived vicariously through me.
Deborah sent her daughter off to her first audition when she was just 6. Clearly, Debbie had an eye for talent because a few years later, McCurdy became a Nickelodeon icon. She made her breakthrough in iCarly, where she played a bubbly, always smiling girl. Her performance earned her 4 Kids' Choice Awards. On the outside, Jennette had the perfect life, but in secret, the young girl buckled under the pressure of child stardom.
You're playing an adult's game. You're in an adult's world, and you don't recognize that. You're incapable of being on that level, but you are confused and you think that you are.
Both her mother and the industry demanded a certain beauty standard, be thin and successful or get kicked out. No wonder McCurdy's self-esteem took a knock. She compared herself to her beautiful, successful peers. Sadly, McCurdy's own mother never taught her that she was enough. Quite the opposite. Deborah imposed her own beauty ideals on her daughter. And when Jennette was just 11, Deborah taught her how to restrict her food intake. "My mom said she could teach me calorie counting and that we could be a team, but that I had to keep it secret. I thought it was an opportunity for my mom and me to be closer." The young actress was living on only 1,000 calories a day. Sometimes she'd eat even less because she wanted her mother to be proud. By the time Jennette was cast as Sam on iCarly, she had anorexia. Ironically, her character's trademark was that she loves food. "I'd have scenes where I was supposed to be eating and they'd have a spit bucket, but I'd have terror that there would still be calories left in my body." McCurdy kept her disorder a secret on set, but the effect of calorie counting haunted her for years to come. In spite of that, all young Jennette wanted to do was please her mum. She had no other frame of reference. So she put on a brave and happy face and pretended to love acting, and her mother used her as a meal ticket.
It felt like a lot of pressure. And then I think my mom saw my career as a way out of that life, of that way of living, of that constant grind.
McCurdy became the breadwinner for her mum, stepdad, and 2 younger brothers. What's worse, she couldn't put away her hard-earned money. It all went to her family. That's not all. McCurdy also suffered a much worse trauma at Deborah's hands, repeatedly. She gave Jennette showers long into her teenage years and touched her inappropriately. Deborah referred to these sessions as medical exams on her daughter's private parts. Apparently, Debbie was trying to check for cancerous lumps and bumps because she herself had walked a road with the disease. Deborah was first diagnosed when Jennette was 2.
So not only was it chaotic because of my mom's violent and erratic, unstable behavior, but also because we all lived in fear of her cancer coming back.
McCurdy described the atmosphere in their home as a hell's breath, so being able to escape to work could have been her saving grace. But sadly, the young girl went from one unsafe space to the next. When Jennette was still underage, a much older man who was high up Nickelodeon encouraged her to drink. He also gave her a shoulder massage. Either the actress was too ashamed to tell her mum, or Deborah knew but did nothing. McCurdy had to deal with it on her own. Still, Jennette kept acting. At 20, she appeared in an iCarly spin-off, Sam and Cat. But just a year later, Jennette's whole world collapsed. In 2013, her mother lost her battle with cancer. Although Deborah hadn't been a healthy influence in her life, McCurdy felt alone. I didn't know who I am without her because I was living for her and now she's dead. But she said there was also a sense of relief, and that made her feel guilty. She started drinking too much, and her anorexia swung to purging and took over her life quickly. I was throwing up to 10 times a day, and I was completely unable to stop, but the cycle kept me numb. There was no space to deal with my issues or mourning my mom. After losing Deborah, Jennette also quit acting completely. The actress didn't even return to the 2021 iCarly revival. She was heading for disaster until 2 health scares shook her awake. First, she passed out in a friend's bathroom after purging. On another occasion, Jennette lost a tooth, its enamel worn by stomach acids. That's when McCurdy realized destroying herself wasn't the way, and finally decided to get professional help. After 2 years of intensive therapy, Jennette got better. She developed a healthier relationship with food. In her career, McCurdy discovered writing and directing. But the former child star still hadn't made peace with her mother's passing.
Grief for me toward my mom used to be really complicated. I'd feel really angry and confused at why I felt angry that I was grieving her. I felt like she didn't deserve my tears and my sadness since she was abusive.
The turning point really came when Jennette wrote her memoir, because before then, McCurdy didn't even realize how much her mother had harmed her. As a young girl and teen, all she wanted to do was please Deborah. Her identity was shaped by her mom. I remember my whole life being orchestrated around her and what she needed and what would make her happy in any moment. In putting her past on paper, Jennette finally saw the truth.
And it hasn't always been easy.
Her mother wasn't a hero after all, quite the opposite. She was selfish and made many terrible mistakes.
I couldn't initially accept the idea that my mother was abusive toward me because my whole way of life, my whole way of going through the world I was operating through this lens of my mom wants what's best for me.
Jennette's healing could only begin once she faced the facts. I think she'll always remain in some ways the heartbeat of my life. I think there is always something about that relationship that will inform who I am and who I continue to be. But today, McCurdy gets to finally choose her own life. A child should never feel as if they need to earn a mother's love.